Ooh, what's up, everybody, and welcome to the Stand Up Guys Podcast, episode 127. I am your host, the incomparable Zach Jones, joined as always by my hombre from the same mombre, Lester Jones.
Hello, everybody.
And of course, we got the Ninth Wonder, Chocolate Thunder, licking booty and nah, it doesn't have these YouTube rules, man. Well, butt's not too bad of a word. Okay, let's start over. The Ninth Wonder.
Maybe just think of something good instead.
That's too hard. The Ninth Wonder. Chocolate Thunder. Licking butts and getting in guts. The booty tasting. Time's a wasting. Having fun eating that scrum. The phenomenal one. A.J. Sing.
Hello, everyone. Nice to meet your guts.
Maybe like when the show begins, you should put a little timer down in the corner and it just counts down the time until we can start swearing.
Actually, I listened to a podcast, this comedian, and he does that kind of, and he calls it like the good boy clock or something like that.
There's always somebody one step ahead.
I know. All right, guys, what have you been doing this week? Hopefully something good. Did you watch anything?
I've been watching a new YouTube channel called Prim's Hood Cinema, and the guy's hilarious. He just makes fun of like Friday and like hood movies.
Like blaxploitation movies or
like a House Party, like all.
Oh, they're making a new House Party.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be bad, I think.
Yeah, I heard it was bad. Yeah.
Bad.
But the dude's hilarious. He's just funny. He sounds like a fat dude, but he's actually kind of skinny.
He sounds like a fat dude.
If you were listening to him on the radio,
You'd be like, this is a fat guy.
Yeah. This guy is fat. Like I can hear things going on.
What do you for the people just hearing our voices? Like, which of us do they think is fat?
Oh God, I sound fat. I'm sure.
Straight up sounds like he's gargling marble. He's just trying to breathe, man.
There's always lard stuck somewhere in here.
I swore he was fat because he sounded like he was going to die every time he was talking, but he was skinny. I can't believe it. Anything else besides YouTube videos?
No, that's mostly it. Yeah.
What about you over there?
I was trying to remember. I watched a couple episodes of Velma just so I'd have something to talk about, and there's nothing to really talk about. It was just not good.
Well, because like I thought about watching it because like we have this thing where like as a kid I like Scooby-Doo and you always hated it, so I thought, well, maybe if I watch Velma and we both watch it, we'll have something to talk about. But yeah, then I just saw like people tweeting about it, and supposedly it's like they're just like, man, this is unfunny and terrible.
Well, it's bad. It's supposed to be like a prequel. Like it tells you how they come together as a team. But like they've taken each of the characters and individually made them like the worst person they could think of. So it's like, oh, I really want to see these people come coalesce into a nice group. Yeah, no, it's just, I don't know, it was bad.
Do you meet Fred before he's wearing his ascot?
I don't know. Well, his dad owns some kind of like men's apparel. And so, I don't know. I don't remember if he actually was wearing an ascot or not.
We should all start wearing ascots for the podcast. We're the ascot boys.
You buy it and I'll wear it. That goes for anything.
I might have to look into this. So, like, would you say it was just like boring or unfunny or like?
It was just like, well, first they take all the characters, they try to make it more adult, so like it opens with like two cockroaches fucking, and like that's pretty much
really
like what the show is all about.
It's cockroach fucking,
right? That it pretty much sums up everything else.
I hope the good boy clock is over.
I told you we needed a clock.
It just seems weird to me to like make a Scooby-Doo cartoon that I guess panders towards an older audience.
Yeah, there's that. So they're like, well, we live in the age of like dirty cartoons or whatever. So let's like dirty this up.
I mean, I guess that's true.
And then they change like beloved characters, and they kind of are all turds. and you're like, yeah, you're just not interested in any of them.
But see, as a kid,
And the jokes are terrible.
as a kid, I always liked Scooby-Doo more for the mystery because, like, the humor was just, like, really, like, juvenile stuff between, like, Shaggy and Scooby, basically. But, like, the mystery was, like, the thing. So does it seem, is there a mystery, or is it just these characters interact?
Yeah, there's somebody who's, like, killing students and scooping out their brains.
Okay, so there's at least something like that.
And for some reason, it's been pinned on Velma. Like, the person wore, like, a mask and a skirt and socks or something. I don't know. But, yeah. Anyway, she has 24 hours to prove her innocence or something like that.
Why 24 hours?
Some random time limit.
I still like my idea of a live action like Scooby-Doo CSI where they're like solving like real murders committed by like costume criminals.
And at the end, Scooby makes a stupid pun.
I would probably not have Scooby talking and it would just be a dog. What else? You said you've been rewatching like the Indiana Jones movies or something?
Yeah, I watched the Lost Ark the other day.
I gotta say, like, Raiders of the Lost Ark is the Indiana Jones movie I've watched like the least because, like, when I was a kid, like, I loved Last Crusade, and I just tended to watch Last Crusade like a lot, and Temple of Doom as well. And like, even as an adult, like rewatching Raiders of the Lost Ark, like, it's good,
But it's not as strong.
yeah. And I even think most people wouldn't agree with this, but I think I even like Temple of Doom more than Raiders.
Yeah, no, Temple of Doom is solid.
You would agree with that?
Yeah.
See, most people are like, "Oh, Raiders." I think most people it's either Raiders or Last Crusade, and they kind of see like Temple of Doom as like a lesser movie. But I don't know.
Last Crusade is so strong.
Oh, it's like
it's a
perfect.
It's a perfect movie. Yeah.
It really is, like, pacing wise, just like it's so fun. It's I can't even like think of like a criticism for it. Really, it's that strong.
Yeah.
It's perfect.
It's perfect.
Well, I'll get to it. I watched something so bad.
Oh yeah, you told me about this, but you wouldn't tell me what it was.
Well, before I get there, I'll name.
I was guessing. I was like, "Is it Velma?" Because it was awful.
Before I get to, I'll name the things you probably think it would be. So I finished Stargirl, the third and final season of Stargirl, and actually, overall, like, I think it's a pretty strong show. Probably because like Jeff Johns is the person that like originally like invented that character, and like he's involved with the show. So like. I liked it. I think it's a solid show. Now, a less solid show that I'm also now watching the third and final season of Batwoman, which, like, it's not like
You're watching stuff that's like so far off my radar.
It's not like last episode of Supergirl bad, but like there is like it does get silly at times.
Is it a CW show?
Yeah, it's a CW show.
Yeah.
They both are actually, but yeah, the writing it just gets silly and convoluted at times, and it did in the previous two seasons as well. It got me thinking though, like, do you think like I feel like if I was a kid growing up with all these like shows, like I would have just been in hog heaven, and just loving it. But like I do wonder about kids growing up right now. If they're just like over it, they're like, oh, another superhero thing. Because like I know, this isn't conclusive, but your kids are like 8 and 10. So far, neither of them are really into the superhero stuff.
They're not really into movies. It's just fucking YouTube all the time.
Yeah.
Is that what is happening? YouTube is just like taking all the kids stuff. And TikTok.
However, I made that Raspberry Pi with all the emulators and stuff on there. Of video games I already own. Disclaimer. That moves it from illegal to in the gray zone. But I put all these old games on our Raspberry Pi, and the kids have been playing Super Mario World on what is that? The Super Nintendo.
Yeah.
And until recently we were playing a lot of Dr. Mario, but that one crashed. I think I'll have to put it on there again. But yeah, they've been enjoying some of the classic gaming, so I feel like I did my part in that.
Did something good.
Yeah.
It's fun watching them get frustrated at the same levels that we used to get frustrated at.
Even OJ was playing, and yeah, the adults play and they get mad, but Liam gets so fucking mad.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Super frustrated.
Yeah, I definitely got mad a few times, like as a kid, like playing those games.
God damn it!
Yeah.
And it's a controller, and it's not
it didn't
doing
jump.
What,
It didn't jump.
Yeah. You know, I had a friend who we were playing a basketball game, and I was beating him like so many times over and over again. He just took out the game, and he looked me right in the eyes, and he just broke it in half. it was his game.
Let's go play some tic-tac-toe, motherfucker.
I think we kind of grew up in like a good age for video games, kind of, because like I do wonder, like as a kid, how intuitive like a modern game is, because for us, like that Nintendo controller, and like it's so simple, it's a couple buttons, we can wrap our heads around it. Like if you were just to give me like a PlayStation like 4 or 5 controller when I was that age, and like all these buttons, I'd be like, I don't know what I'm doing.
It's probably a bit overwhelming, but a lot of games have gotten a lot better at like onboarding you. Like they teach you like the X button, and then they teach you the circle button.
I'm sure like kids get the hang of it, but
Yeah.
I bet
If you played some kids online, they probably stick their foot up your ass.
Oh, for sure, for sure. Well, they say like, your like reaction time like starts to go down in like, I think like as soon as like your late teens, early 20s. So like most people, they're like, in these E-leagues that are like just elite players, they're mostly like
all
teenagers.
young.
Yeah. They're making millions, man.
Oh, I know it.
That's nuts.
I don't think I played anything well enough as a kid that I could have been like in those ranks.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. Like there was games I was good at, but like I don't think I would have been able to like compete on a national level.
You might be able to be a breakthrough champion.
I was good at breakthrough. Micro Machines. Although no,
Micro Machines was hard. Or sometimes it's
That's my favorite NES game though. That game's awesome.
Yeah, for NES that was super solid.
So good. You know what sucks is like over the years, like they've made more of those, but they're not like the top-down NES style. They're
try
like
to be 3D.
Yeah, or like 2.5D, and like I don't think any of them have been rated well. So it's like I still though like I think I'm in a very niche audience. On PS1, I loved the Jet Moto racing games. And so I'm like, God, they need to remake those. Like, just remake them. They're so good. But, like, I don't think anybody gives a shit besides me about those games.
Well, it feels like there's always be a spot for racing games.
I feel like racing games are the last, like, I don't know, 10, 15 years, maybe even longer, have been so boring.
Yeah.
Well, there's, like, they're really, like, sim ones like Gran Turismo.
Man, I played one of those, and it was so fucking long. I was like, I have no idea where this ever ends. But maybe it doesn't end. Maybe it's just infinite races.
Well, I remember in college, me and you had like Gran Turismo 3, and I played it a lot, and I had some fun with it. But I prefer like more arcadey stuff, like racers that aren't like quite so hard. But like even those, I feel have just gotten kind of bland over the years, and they're just the same thing. Like at least Jet Moto, like you're on these like jet bikes, and there's all these like crazy levels. Like there's literally in Jet Moto 2, like which is my favorite one, like there's literally like a level where you keep like riding between heaven and hell. And it's awesome. And like when you're in heaven, like the music's all like pleasant, and then you go into hell and it's all like death metal. It's like there's like some crazy fun levels in that game. I would love to play that again, but I think it would be hard if they didn't kind of update the visuals and controls.
Well, I think one of the things now is like if you put out a racing game, like if you come back to make another racing game, are you gonna recreate it, or are you just gonna take all your physics and all your mechanics and everything and just slap a new picture on it, a new graphic, and call it a day? I
mean, they've been doing both with certain game franchises lately. I think with Jet Moto, like really you could just like, it was so solid, the gameplay, that I think you could really just update the graphics probably, and map controls to like the triggers and like modern day stuff that people would expect, and maybe you would add like online racing for people who like that. But like it is interesting because like some games I feel like are so good you really can just like update the graphics, and then like but like I was never into the Resident Evil games, but I know a couple years ago they remade Resident Evil 2, and they actually did a little more tinkering with it.
Yeah.
And people love that game.
Yeah, they've definitely tried different styles and different mechanics and stuff. Well, I remember playing, what is it, number 4 was really good.
That's the only Resident Evil I ever played, and actually there is a remake of that coming out in a couple months. I'm not interested enough in it to actually play it, but a lot of people will.
Like, I remember playing a little bit on, like, the PS2, but I don't think I got very far. Or maybe it was even PS1.
Oh,
Resident
like the
Evil 2.
Yeah, I think that would have been a PS1 game.
I think it was, yeah.
Yeah, and I think like people say like it had like rough like tank controls and I think that's kind of the stuff they fixed when they did the remake, But are there any games like you guys loved in the past that you're like would love to see like a modern day remake of?
Fable. Yeah, I used to play that game a lot. Like I played it probably over again like 4 times.
They still make those, don't they?
Actually, there was just a news story I think this week because like several years ago they announced that they were making a new Fable, which I think would be like the 4th in the series. I want to say.
Yeah.
And like just like this week they announced it like, I don't think they said it was canceled, but basically it was taken out of the hands of the studio that was working on it because it was in like such like rough shape or something.
Oh.
So like it may or may not ever come out.
Oh boy.
Yeah, that's not a good sign.
Yeah.
That's like a Xbox game, though, right? Yeah. So I've never played those. What is it exactly? Like an RPG type of thing?
Yeah, it is. It's like a fantasy world.
But it's got like all the Disney characters, right?
No, that's Kingdom Hearts.
Kingdom Hearts, that's the one I'm thinking of.
Years ago, I tried playing like the Kingdom Hearts, but I wanted to start with the first one, and it was originally like a PS2 game, and it was a bit rough, so I couldn't really get into it.
Like the whole selling point for Fable, like when it first came out, was like you could be good or evil, like your decisions like matter in this game, and it's kind of cool. Like throughout the franchise, they usually do make it to the point where like your decisions. It does matter, like every decision you make does have an impact on how the game turns out, and it's interesting. I want to see how that plays out again, because that'd be really interesting to see redone modern.
Yeah, that's hard to do when you're having like story splits and different things going on.
Yeah.
It is weird, like those games where they have like, branching choices you can pick, because like, even though like people are taking different branches, like, at the end of the day, they kind of have to all come to the same point. Like if you look at the structure, those like, choose your own adventure books, they basically like form a diamond shape where it's like they branch out, but then eventually they come back to the same endpoint kind of.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of depends if they choose that structure or not. Because I think there have been some that don't. But the thing is, if you've got like all these branches and you have to fill them out, and that's a huge mess. Or you're either gonna put a ton of development in, and you're going to shorten the length of the game, but you increase replayability stuff. But
I'm wondering, like, I like the Mass Effect franchise, which is another franchise where like you choose your own pathways and stuff.
There's another.
Oh, go ahead.
Have you ever like played a game or something like that, and like you make like what seems like the moral choice, and they like fuck you over?
Actually, yes. What are you? Is there
it's kind of funny, but I don't remember. I just remember like you're really like you're out there. I don't know. I feel like a lot of people play this way, where you're just like trying to be a good person. You're nice to the NPCs. You try to do the right thing.
By the way, most people statistically play that way.
Yeah.
When given a choice.
Right. Because you actually feel those emotions where like like you don't want to be like a piece of shit. And you're also like there's also that fear in the back of your mind that it's going to screw you over.
You know what game like in the recent couple of years that did that to me that really pissed me off? There's this game called Detroit Become Human, which is you play as like these 3 different characters, and it's all about branching paths. You make all these choices, and so there can be a lot of different outcomes, right? And so like in one of these, you're playing as this android that's also like a cop, and he works with like the guy that's the voice of Mr. Krabs. Who's like a human. But anyway, like I'm playing this level, and I get stuck where like, it does that thing where like someone's about to kill me, but like, you look around and you see is there like something I can grab or whatever, and there must have been something, but like I could not find it. So like my character just dies. He's our android, so he gets a little later on gets rebooted. But then like I go to this other like android's house that we're like questioning, or no, it's a real guy and we're questioning him in this case or whatever. And he has like a android butler or something. And basically he tells me that if I want like a lead on my case, I have to kill the android because it's what. And I'm like, well, I'm the good guy. I'm going to make the good decision. So like, I don't kill him. But then basically it's just like, oh, you didn't find a lead. Your case is over. This storyline never picks back up. You're fucked. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, you're just going to like screw me and just like, nope.
You could have rebooted him again.
It doesn't give you another shot. And you're just like, okay.
Are they trying to teach us to be assholes?
I guess so.
It's like in the old school games where you had like 20 saves and you're like, I guess I'll go back to number 12.
But going back to Mass Effect, what I find interesting is so like when that game ends, like the ending, no matter what you choose, is very similar, but there's like these slight differences. But then like they're making another Mass Effect, which I think, I might be wrong about this, but I think it's supposed to be like a sequel to the original trilogy. But it's like, since there are like small like differences, of the way the first one ended, like I don't know how they would work that into a new one. It just, maybe they would just ignore it. I don't know.
Just pick one.
Yeah.
Or maybe, I don't know, make a story where it doesn't really matter. But
Clancy Brown,
yeah, yeah. Man, he does so many voices. I hear him and shit all the time.
Yeah, I've definitely heard him around. He's got such a deep voice.
It's very distinct, yeah. Well, guys, before we get into story time, like I teased you with this. So this past weekend, I think I watched possibly the worst movie I've ever seen. It's definitely hands down the most boring movie I've ever seen.
Have you ever watched The Room?
I have not, but you know what? I would much rather watch The Room. Okay, so the way this came about is there's this magazine I've never heard about, this British film magazine called Sight and Sound, which I guess has been around for a very long time. And starting in 1952, they polled a large group. I don't know who's all in it. Like a lot of movie critics, directors, like maybe actors. I don't know, but a lot of people involved with the film industry. And they basically have them. They compiled the 100 greatest films of all time, according to this voting body, right? And so, the first one was in 1952. I remember starting in 1962. Their top movie was Citizen Kane, and that remained the same all the way through their 2012 poll.
Man.
Right? And like the other top 10, like changed up a little bit, but a lot of the same ones were in there. Whatever.
Right.
But a couple months ago, they did their 2022, vote, and this movie, and I'm not even sure exactly how to pronounce it. I believe it's called Jeanne Dielman, or maybe Jeanne Dielman. It's like the lead woman character's name.
Okay.
And it kind of took the world by storm because like myself and a lot of people, I've never heard of this movie. Like, Citizen Kane. Oh, I've actually seen Citizen Kane, but even like a lot of the other movies on there are movies I've at least heard of if I haven't seen them, But this movie, I'm like, never heard of it. But I was trolling through HBO and it was on there. So I was like, oh, the greatest movie of all time. Maybe I should check this out.
So this was number one like last year.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, their list of the single greatest movie of all time. Now, I was a little hesitant to even start it because it's a 3.5 hour long movie.
Okay, that's a good stretch. Yeah.
Longer than Avatar. So here's the thing. I want to be somewhat constructive in my criticism, not just curse this movie out.
So starting, we know you think it's horrible. At some point where you're like, is it me? Do I have bad taste?
Well, here's the thing. I was thinking about bowing out and just stopping it. But then I was like, well, if I talk about it on the podcast, people are going to be like, well, you didn't wait you didn't get to the
Right.
end, So I'm like, you know what?
You quit right before the gold.
Right. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to stick with it. By the way, I would love you guys just to watch the first 10 to 15 minutes of this movie.
3.5 hours.
Just watch the first 10 to 15, just so you'll have a brand new respect for
Oh,
it.
I did see Avatar though this week.
Oh, you did?
Forgot to mention that. Yeah.
Okay, after this, we'll talk about that. Oh, my stupid phone alarm that I always forget about. So basically, the premise of this movie, I think if you look at HBO, their description. By the way, this movie is it's foreign. It's like Belgium, I think. Takes place in Belgium anyway. I don't know. Basically, it's about this widow who turns to prostitution in order to provide for her family.
I may have heard of this.
Okay. So here's the thing. That sounds somewhat interesting, right?
Right.
But here's what the movie is for the most part. First of all, the camera is always in it. I mean, it switches location, but the camera is always static. So the camera never moves. You're always looking at one, fixed point. And you follow this woman, and the whole movie is her doing menial tasks. I'm not kidding. So, these are some of the scenes in the movie. 5 minutes of her washing dishes. 5 minutes of her cooking. There's several different cooking scenes. 5 minutes of her eating soup with her son in almost silence. Twice.
You gotta have seconds.
Her making the bed for 5 minutes. Just menial task after menial task.
Sure you didn't watch a home ec movie or something?
Oh my God, it's so brutal.
You watched the wrong version.
So here's the thing: I'm watching this. I'm like, this cannot be what this movie is. By the way, as I'm watching it, I'm like, how? At a certain point, I'm like, how can this movie possibly redeem itself? And here's the thing, and I wrote this down because this movie fails on just a basic storytelling, because there's no conflict in this movie, or at least arguably very little, because you're watching this, and basically, basically the movie covers 3 days in this woman's very boring life, and the only kind of difference is as you get from day 1 to 2 to 3 is you kind of see the drudgery of her routine starts to
so
get
you were
to her.
actually feeling the horribleness of everyday life, just like every day.
Yeah, there's no escapism. in
Exactly
this
what you're
movie.
trying to escape from.
Yeah, there's no escapism in this movie at all. So but on day 2, maybe her hair gets a little messed up, and you're like, oh, she and then day 3, she forgets to button a button on her vest or whatever, and she forgets a step in her routine. So you're like, okay, I see this very slight thing that shows her routine is starting to get to her or whatever, right? Now, as far as the prostitution thing, so basically, there's 3 Johns in the whole movie that come and visit her, but even this is done very prim and proper. She takes their coat or whatever. They go to the room. You just see the door closes. Then they come out. She gives back the coat and whatever. They pay her whatever, except, and I'll get to it. The very last John, there's a little more to it. So yeah, there almost no conflict in the movie. I put no editing. There's no editing at all. That's why the movie is 3.5 goddamn hours long.
They're we're just gonna. It's all just straight 5-minute shots of
Exactly, and that's the thing.
It's like, how do you cut anything out of that?
Here's the thing that bothers me. This movie, and it would still be terrible, but it's 3.5. You could easily cut out 2.5 to 2.5 hours of this movie and still have all the same scenes if you just cut down like 5 minutes of her washing dishes to 3 minutes of her washing dishes. Like, we get it. It's boring. Move on. But here's what I'm getting at. So I was so like flummoxed that somebody. First of all, I don't believe this is anyone's favorite movie. And that's what I'm getting to. Is
Like, what? How did this come to happen?
Exactly. How did this happen? Because here's the thing. Like, you know what this reminded me of is like, you know those really like pretentious art galleries where like there'll be like a real basic painting, like that's just like nothing but a red square, and somebody will be like, "Oh, I get it. The red, it represents fascism, and the little white border represents us oppressed that are being like squeezed out and all this kind of bullshit."
It's like when they vote the retard as prom king.
and I'm just like,
Demonetized.
yeah, Greg, you ruined this thing. But I'm just like, what is the red square like excuse like somebody made for this movie? Because that's what I think happened. I have nothing to back this up, but I think somebody prominent in the community wrote an article about how this movie is actually brilliant and how it's like an unappreciated gem or something, and then all the people voting for this went like, "Oh, whoever wrote this makes a great point. I'm going to vote for this movie." I think there's some groupthink going on.
Yeah.
Because
It's
again,
like Prince John's clothes.
I cannot express without any. I find this movie putrid. I really do. It was, the whole thing was excruciating. I honestly, and here's the thing that bothers me is I know if I express this to like people who defend this movie, they'd be like, "Well, that's the point. You need to watch all these 5-minute things because otherwise the drudgery of real life doesn't come through." I'm like, God. And the other thing is, when this woman, like, because there are scenes where she like leaves her, most of it's shot in her apartment, but there's various times where she does like leave the apartment and go on different errands, including like watching her 5 minutes in line at the bank. It's God, I hated this movie. And she takes the elevator, from her building. You watch her take the elevator probably a minimum of 15 times in this movie. And you have to watch her do it because we can't edit that out. You got to know she's in that elevator every time. God, I wrote down this movie doesn't respect the audience. It actively wants to annoy the audience and tell the audience that that's the point. And I also wrote, anyone who likes this movie has Stockholm Syndrome. They're like, I put too much time into this. I have to justify it.
Yeah.
Okay, what I want, and I won't spoil it, but towards, I would say, probably 10 minutes from the end of the movie, there's finally one thing that happens in this goddamn piece of shit that's interesting. Something interesting happens. Finally, some conflict in this movie. Now, you know what that conflict is directly followed up by? No resolution whatsoever. This woman comes into a room, sits in the room, doing nothing for like 5 to 7 minutes, credits. And also, there's another scene in the movie of her just sitting in a room for 5 minutes. Doing nothing. There's no way there's no way this is someone's favorite movie. I can't believe it. If this is your favorite movie, you are too boring to live. I'm sorry.
Kill yourself.
It can't be. I want to know how this reached the top of this list. There has to be some groupthink going on.
I mean, what was the big outcome of, like, did was it always have a pimp or something? Like, what was the lesson?
No. What's the lesson? That's a good question. I honestly, like, if there was a message of this movie, I don't know what it is, except that real life is boring a lot and sucks. I mean, honestly, like, again, I would love you guys to just watch as first 10 minutes of this movie or as much of it
So
as
like
you can
said,
stand.
that's like 2 scenes.
Yeah.
Some washing of the dishes.
Exactly.
Some elevator trip.
It's so bad. And the thing of it is like, also there's not a lot of dialogue in the movie. Like, she has some dialogue with her son, and like occasionally she goes to the store and has dialogue with like the shopkeepers or whatever. But like, even like if it was like, oh no, will her son discover that she's become a prostitute? No, like I said, there's no conflict. There's never a time when you're like, oh, is something gonna happen? Is this gonna get interesting? No, it's not.
That'd be hilarious.
Steadfastly refuses.
If she has like one of her like, sex scenes, like she closes the door and hands him his jacket or whatever. It's all professional looking, and her son walks in and he's like, "Man, it smells like ass in here. What's going on?"
That would have saved the movie for me.
You selling booty?
Well, even like the very last scene, I'm like, are we going to hear the door of like her son coming up and that would in and be like, oh no, what happened in our minds or whatever? No, they don't even do that. It's just her doing nothing and the movie. I mean, God, I hated this thing. I really feel like this is it might be my most hated movie of all time. I mean, there are other movies that I've watched that are also like bad, but at least they're short. like that Robin Williams Popeye movie is fucking terrible. I also watched
Missing Popeye.
there's also Scarlett Johansson sci-fi movie called Under the Skin, which is also putrid and I hated, but at least there was some conflict in that movie. But oh man, what I want though, if like anybody is still watching this, if you like this movie, please, for the love of God, comment and tell me like what you liked about this. Like, I was just flummoxed. This thing ended, and I was like, how?
If I had a time machine, I'd go back in time and not do this.
Honestly, I would.
Was it all black and white?
No, it was in color. This movie came out in like the mid 70s, like 1975, I think. But like,
So those like 60 years of Citizen Kane, and like later someone came and says, "Oh no, this is what you want." I was assuming it was something new.
no.
So was it on the list before?
I think it was on the list, but never in the top 10.
Okay.
This reminds me of Patton Oswalt. He has like a joke where he's like, we have these like our lives are becoming so like crazy, and we're gonna start having movies that are just like monotonous, bland things, like Man Eats Cereal or something like that. And that's what this movie.
We already had it from 1975.
Yeah.
Maybe we could change our podcast to just 5-minute like shots of us doing nothing.
And they'll be like, "This is brilliant. It's
Yeah,
so
right.
avant-garde."
These guys need to make a movie.
Okay, so yeah, that's it. Please, like I said, if you like Jeanne Dielman, please let me know why. But before we get into story time, you mentioned you watched Avatar 2, The Way of Water.
I snuck off on Thursday and had some alone time and watched Avatar. I think, like you said, some of the shots feel a little bit funny, but good story. I like that it was more of like a localized battle than like a gigantic like war, even though they're obviously building to a big war. But yeah, no, it was good.
What do you think? Like I said, I really like the underwater shots. Like,
Yeah, that was super strong. I think they really like what is captivating about like just like ocean documentaries. Like they created their own world and like put you in that, so you're just kind of in awe. Like there's so many scenes that are probably just so slow and meaningless, but they're still captivating just because there's so much like sense of awe in just watching it.
Yeah, like I'm sure like people complain about the length of Avatar too, and I'm like, yeah, they could have probably cut some of those scenes, but at the same time, like they're visually interesting at least.
Yeah, no, I didn't feel like it was ever so slow that I was cashed out. I was always in. Even
Yeah, I was never like, when is this thing gonna end? Like,
even when it was like just the world building stuff and just kind of witnessing the world, it's still captivating.
for sure. Like, what do you think? Like, I don't want to spoil any plot details, but like the next movie, like, do you think it's gonna be like, oh, they're gonna find some excuse to go to this part of Pandora that we haven't seen?
Well, that's what.
But then, like, the bad guys are gonna follow them there, and it's like I'm not sure.
I kind of thought that initially because I was like, this is how he's going to unite all the tribes. But at the end, he's like, this is where we fight. Like he's decided to take his ground here or something.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure, but looking at the first movie, I was pretty sure like his destiny is to unite all these tribes and bring them together. But now I'm kind of wondering if like the one daughter is going to really be the key player in the future. So I'm not sure.
You know what would be interesting if they made human body avatars.
Uno reverse.
Yeah.
Running around like a bunch of little pussies.
Because ultimately it does seem like there's eventually like going to have to be like a how do the humans and the Na'vi learn to get along.
I don't think it's going to happen. I think the world's going to coalesce to kill all the humans.
I mean, that would be interesting, but do you think they're going to go that dark?
Yeah.
I don't. I mean, that that would be interesting. Like, oh, actually, you know what would be interesting is if like the last movie they come to Earth,
They wipe everybody out.
it becomes like a Quentin Tarantino like revenge film like for Native Americans.
Inglorious Bastards, sort of.
Well, they basically said that humans have already like destroyed Earth or whatever. So
Well, I didn't want to. Yeah, I didn't want to. Okay, let's do very slight spoiler. Yeah, they mentioned that like, Earth, like in a lot of science fiction, like maybe climate change, whatever.
Yeah.
Like they're kind of ruined the planet. So the idea is that the humans are actually going to come to Pandora and live. They're like trying to build like.
well, yeah, it shows them building like roads and like skyscrapers in days with all these like automated like
Right.
spiders or whatever.
So I found that interesting. So that's what I'm saying is I think like with more and more humans coming to Pandora, like it eventually like.
Well,
I don't think it's gonna be the Na'vi like destroying all the humans.
so. I don't want to say like a full spoiler, but at one point they get like this sample and they're like, "This is worth $80 million."
Oh, right.
I'm like, you are riding in like a $40 trillion vehicle right now.
Yeah.
Like, there's not enough resources on this planet to ship all of this across outer space.
Yeah, you can't really justify space travel for
Right.
Yeah,
For anything. Really.
economic gain. Yeah.
Although if that $80 million substance existed, like it would actually they would get more than $80 million out of it
Probably.
if it really
They,
would.
I think they would have to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is interesting though, but yeah, like James Cameron definitely obsessed with the ocean, and you can tell it in this movie.
Yeah, no, it was really good in that sense.
Well, guys, we can get a few stories in before it's time to call it quits.
What time are we at?
We've done like 45 minutes just shooting the shit.
Okay.
So anyone who hasn't watched before, we like to do a little thing we call story time, where we go around the table, and everyone's going to bring a wacky news story from around the globe, and we will see if we can't just make something funny and or entertaining out of it. And as tradition dictates, AJ, we usually start with you. So what do you got for us?
All right, the Last of Us fungus cordyceps is actually real. The nightmare-inducing fungus that turns humans into crazed zombies in The Last of Us is actually a real thing. which should help you to sleep easy tonight. Here's the trailer, blah, blah. Turn off your ad block. So far, it seems as if HBO's take on the horror drama video game series, The Last of Us, is off to a good start, with loads of people chiming in to praise the show in general, but also the performances of stars Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey. The premise of the show and the games, as it happens, is pretty simple. There's a fungus that has managed to somehow infect the human population of the world, turning people into terrifying zombie-like creatures that attack everything they see. Battle-hardened survivor Joel Pascal has to get Ellie Ramsey to safety, as she is one of the few people who is immune to the infection and therefore stands a chance of ending the pandemic. Luckily for us, we know a thing about pandemics, don't we? The man behind the show also claims that the threat from the fungus, which actually exists, is real. Cordyceps, it's called cordyceps, and at the minute it only affects ants and other small insect-type creatures, somehow controlling them and bending them to its will, but it's very much a real thing. This type of fungus, unlike others, deals in things that are living rather than dead, flooding the brains of ants with chemicals and taking over muscles to get them to the perfect place for it to grow before spreading spores to control more ants. It doesn't affect the ants' brains, but it's still pretty terrifying. Craig Mazin, the showrunner who also brought us the equally uplifting Chernobyl, recently explained to the Hollywood Reporter, it's real to the extent that everything he says that the fungus does, they do. And they currently do it, and they have been doing it forever. There are some remarkable documentaries that you can watch that are quite terrifying, referencing a flashback warning from a scientist at the beginning of the TV show, which suggests that the fungus could infect humans, he added. Now, his warning, what if they evolve and get into us? From a purely scientific point of view, would they do exactly what they do to ants? I don't think so. I doubt it. On the other hand, he's right. LSD and psilocybin do come from fungus. Here's what cordyceps does to an ant. What I told to John Hannah was that we're doing in this scene is telling people that this has always been here. The show has received rave reviews from critics and fans alike since premiering on Sunday and around the world. Since Sunday and Monday around the world, and you can catch the next episode of Sky Atlantic. Blah blah. Just a plug for the show, but I mean, I kind of heard about this already.
Right.
Yeah, this is just those ants that like hang on to like the end of branches, and like their body like explodes, and they spread the fungus onto like other ants and stuff like that. So
It is interesting though. Like I do like that. Like, you know, most zombie like stuff, it's just like, oh, some mysterious thing happened and now there's zombies. I like it that this is at least like somewhat like, you know, based on something in real life. It makes it a little more interesting, I guess.
yeah, I mean, I've also heard of it like another fungus with mice that makes them like almost like suicidal. Like the whole thing is like they're supposed to spread their disease to like cats and other animals, and so like they start becoming confrontational with cats, and yeah, they die, and then the disease goes on to the cat, and the cat spreads it to other people.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
There is some like really like crazy shit in nature, isn't there?
yeah. There's one about wasps too. I think that kind of like messes them up too from the inside. So I mean, there are like zombie like diseases out there for these other animals. So it does make you think, yeah, could happen to humans.
And then we'll grow big old mushrooms off of our heads and eat people.
Yeah.
Should we roll on over to Manifesto Round 1?
Let's do it.
Yeah, maybe. Are you guys interested in watching that show? Like, I like the game, but I'm kind of like, even though it's getting really good ratings, I'm kind of like, do I want to watch it?
I will watch it. I'm not chomping or champing at the bit to watch it, but I'll watch it. Like, so far I've only played the first game, and I like it, but I don't find it to be like a masterpiece like everyone else. I'm like, oh, this is like, you know, zombie fare, you know. It's fine, but I'm not like super duper excited about it.
I like Pedro Pascal. I liked him in Game of Thrones, so I might check it out just because of him.
And
What?
The Mandalorian.
Was the girl, like the daughter in Game of Thrones as well?
She's actually like the that girl that becomes like queen of like a territory.
Yeah. Okay, I thought I recognized her. Okay, here we go. Woman sues bar after getting so drunk she blew up a $10 million home. So
Wait, what?
She's suing.
this is in London, Ontario. So she went to like this Marilyn Manson concert, got fucking drunk as shit, and she was driving home and she drove into this super expensive home, hit a gas line. Somehow it went back up, caused this giant explosion, destroyed that house and like a few around it. And so like the total damage is like $15 million or something.
This is like something that would happen in an 80s movie that you'd be like, oh, that's far-fetched.
That would never happen. Goddamn Michael Bay. Fucking hack.
Yeah, what is she, a transformer? She's like fucking destroying the city.
But like the explosion must have happened away from her because she was okay. She got like 3 years in prison. But yeah, now she's getting out and she's suing them for being negligent and not like stopping her from driving.
Hey, you might do $15 million worth of damage. You sure you don't want to put those keys away? Like,
every drunk driver would try that defense. Why didn't anyone stop me?
Yeah.
It's on you. I was clearly out of control.
like no bar could exist if you had to like.
All right. But there are laws like that where they can be like, let's say they're negligent or something.
Yeah, isn't there a thing where like, I want to say in certain places, like if the bartender doesn't cut a person off when they can see they're like too drunk or something, like
Right.
they can get in trouble, which I don't know, seems silly, but
Yeah. I don't know. That seems counterintuitive to capitalism. Like, aren't you supposed to sell as much as you can?
That's what I would do.
man, this is a downer of a story.
Oh, I saw this.
It's actually really tragic, but it's so bizarre and caught me off guard that I like had to talk about it. 6 people die after having their throats slit by kite strings at a kite festival.
Oh yeah, I heard this one.
6 people, including 3 small children, have died in multiple horrific kite accidents after illegal strings wrapped around their necks and slit their throats. According to police, hundreds of kite enthusiasts were injured when they attempted to duel with the toys in midair in the western state of Gujarat. So I think this is like in India.
Yeah.
Residents headed to the roofs and terraces en masse to participate in the festival. However, some kite fighters used razor-sharp cords to take theirs to the sky before it ended in disaster. The children killed included 2 girls aged 2 and 3 and a 7-year-old boy. To make matters worse, none of the children were actually participating in the festivities when they were fatally wounded. Police told NDTV 7-year-old Rishab was riding with his parents on a motorized scooter, having just bought their own kite to take part in the festival when his throat was slit. 2-year-old Kirti also was riding on a motorized scooter when she became entangled and her throat was cut. She was rushed to hospital for treatment but later died. 3-year-old Kismat was walking home with her mother when a thread came in contact with her neck. She was rushed to hospital but was declared dead on arrival. According to police, incidents were reported in the districts of Vadodara, Kutch, and Gandhinagar. A further 3 men lost their lives while riding their motorbikes when they were cut down by kite strings. As per news agency Press Trust of India, emergency services recorded a total of 130 people that were injured by cuts from kites. A further 46 were injured after falling from roofs when flying kites during the festival. Emergency services also saw a spike in road accidents linked to the festival in recent days, with 461 cases on January 15th and 820 on January 14th. According to the Statesman News Services, 188 people have been arrested for selling Chinese nylon kite strings coated with powdered glass. Commissioner Police Sukhchain Singh Gill said they received nearly 200 reports of vendors selling the banned strings, which have now been linked to numerous fatalities, injuries, and injuries to wildlife. As per the directions of Chief Minister Bhagwant Mann, the Punjab police will take strict action against those buying or selling Chinese kite flying strings, he said. Gill added that Punjab police have taken strict actions against those sellers trading in Chinese kite string and have so far recovered as many as 10,269 Chinese spools of the dangerous material. My thing is like, what was the point of these strings? Is like the idea was like they send their kites up and what do they just try to like cut the other kite with it?
Yeah, I think it cuts other people's strings, which I guess means you win the battle. I don't know.
Jeez,
I mean,
it's like
that's
so
the cost
crazy.
of it. Jeez. When I went to India like last time I was there, I think that was like 2016, 2017. Yeah, like they were warning me then, like don't if
Don't mess with those kite guys.
Yeah, like they were buying kites and they were like, don't buy the kites that have like the Chinese strings. They knew back then like those were really dangerous, so they've known about it. I mean, the fact that people are still selling them, I mean, they must really care about these kite competitions. I don't know.
I've never even heard of such a thing. So when I saw this headline, I was just like, what? People dying from kites?
I've seen those videos of like little kids getting picked up by kites, like by the neck, like but not cut or anything. You ever seen those Chinese videos? Like
No.
Yeah, it's pretty powerful. Like the wind just picks up a kite and a little kid will get picked up with it.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Man, I haven't flown a kite in so many years.
Yeah.
I don't even remember the last time.
I've had one at the beach with the kids once or twice.
All right.
Those little ones. Hopefully nothing that would
With a razor
carry them
string.
off.
You didn't murder a bunch of seagulls or anything.
I don't particularly have any love for seagulls.
But it's not like,
They're just flying and like cuts it in half.
so most
God,
of these
another
people that died were like on bikes and scooters and stuff. So was it just like, people flew the kite, they fell down and the line was like alongside a road or something?
It probably
Clothesline?
line's probably pretty much invisible, and you're going along at 15 miles an hour or something.
Yeah.
It's just so crazy. Like, yeah, like tragic. And
It's amazing, like the ways we can die.
the other thing is, like you said, like they've known for years that like these things were hazardous. Like the fact that like someone could die, like a little kid especially could die from it, and you're like, no, I'll still do it.
Yeah, they're willing
That's
to take
crazy.
that chance. Yeah.
It's crazy.
Well, what about Americans? Like, you get like a stick of dynamite for the 4th of July. Like, hooey boy! Watch this.
It's true. Some people really get the illegal fireworks and stuff, and
M1000s.
or they do that thing where they like wrap a bunch of sparklers together and make a sparkler bomb.
Bombs, yeah.
Those can be deadly. I really like the looks of those Chinese lanterns, but I'm like, those things have to cause forest fires like crazy.
For sure.
Yeah. I always thought it'd be cool to set off like 1,000 of those things, but then I was like, yeah, I'm going to burn down a $10 million house or something.
Maybe if you could do it like over the ocean and the wind was blowing in the right way.
Yeah.
I mean, they look cool as shit. but-
Japan would declare war on you. It's an attack.
Do you happen in the old manifesto to have like a short story we can go out on?
I haven't really pre-read these.
Oh,
Airline worker dies after being ingested into the engine of a plane.
Oh, I saw this. Yeah.
no capes.
I think it was like a baggage handler, right? He was just.
Like I said, I haven't read it.
Yeah, I think it was.
That's pretty short, but yeah, it got sucked in
God.
to an engine. Like, my dad has a story. Like, he said they did a field trip to Alaska when he was a kid. And when they went to leave, they're on the runway, and there's like a small jet, I think, like maybe like I don't know, something. But he said they were there and it's going, and they get sit down in there and they fire up the engines or whatever, and this moose comes along straight in the engine.
Oh no!
he said their field trip went a little longer.
Oh my gosh!
But the moose was delicious.
Yeah.
Nice and tender.
Can you imagine? I mean, I know they get shit like that sometimes. They get a lot of birds in the air.
Yeah, that's what took down that Sully plane, right? Those birds.
I didn't watch that.
Well, I didn't watch it, but I'm pretty sure that's what happened. Is like a bunch of birds took out one of the engines or whatever.
Yeah.
Sounds like an engine took out a bunch of birds.
It was mutual destruction.
Yeah, birds and airplanes don't mix very well.
I remember this one story, like apparently they would test airplane windows by firing a chicken out of a cannon into it, and like they had one, and like the guy loaded it up or whatever, and they fired this thing, and they just destroyed the window, and they're like, oh yeah, I guess you're supposed to defrost the chicken.
Oh my god!
So, yeah, they just canned a big chunk of ice straight into it. It reminds me of that. Like, you see that Tesla truck when Elon Musk was doing that thing, and he's like, "You can't break these," and he like gives this guy like a metal ball or something. And he just like smashes the window. He's like, "Oh, back to the. This is embarrassing."
You know what that reminds me of is that scene in Napoleon Dynamite where the guy is trying to prove to the lady that like the Tupperware is indestructible. So he like backs his vehicle like on it, and it just like crushes it, and he just like pulls off. He just leaves.
That's a great movie. That's a good one.
It's such a, you know what? That was such a weird movie. And then that guy, I know he made that like Nacho Libre movie, but then I'm like, did that guy keep making movies? I've never.
He was in like a few like lower level comedies.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, like, not the actor, but the guy that directed. I was just wondering because like. I feel like it's been a long time since like a really weird movie like that came along and like captured America, you know.
I saw that in a theater, and what was so great was like the palpable like discomfort of the people in the audience. Like you could tell there was so like so many awkward like things. I don't know.
I haven't seen it in forever, but like I remember watching it in college, not at the theater, but and it's definitely a peculiar movie.
Yeah.
Like it definitely has a sensibility that you don't find in a lot of movies.
I'd say looking back, that's got to be one of my favorite comedies, just because
It's so weird.
even like rewatching it, I'll laugh at stuff, and that's like, you know what's happening. You know, there's no surprise, which is usually the funny part of something.
Maybe that's why like a lot of comedies don't hold up because like even if they were good at the time, like you know the jokes and there's no surprise.
I think there's that, and that in a lot of movies, they're not like designed to age well. There's a lot of like pop culture references and stuff like that, and it doesn't hold up over time.
That is one hard thing about movies that it, you know, unless they're like, you know, futuristic or something. Like if they could take place in modern society, like eventually they're gonna look like. I mean, like if you watch like an '80s movie, like you can usually be like, "Oh yeah, it's an '80s movie.
Yeah.
Look at that computer." You know, not that it necessarily makes it a bad movie, but it makes it like easily like identifiable. You know.
Yeah, there's a lot of those things. Anyway,
All right. Well, I think we made a show, guys. Should we wrap this bad boy up?
I'm
Yeah, let's
ready.
do it.
All right, guys. Well, we thank everybody very much for playing along. If you will, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Leave us, thumbs up, positive reviews, comments. And right now, we are on, well, somebody has to leave, but he's probably still on Twitter. Who knows? But why don't you guys come over and find us on Twitter? AJ, where can people find you on
A
Twitter?
name for this too, and that's number 2.
I believe Lester is at unsolicited SUG, and you can find me at Zach Jones Live. That's ZachJonesLive, and that is going to do it for all of our shenanigans and poppycock this week. Please, please, please tune in again next week. Bye, guys.
Take care.
Have a good one.